Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Casey Hart. I am going to be I'm going to be administrating your MCM 520 Media History this semester. I'm very excited. This is one of my absolute favorite classes to teach. I know that may seem strange to some of you who may have had the same experience with history classes I had. If you had the same experience I had back in school, history was probably not the most exciting thing in the world. Um, you probably had the experience of tests where you were asked to tell a particular name or date and remember just absolute massive amounts of very dry information. That's not that's not what this class is going to be all about. Let me assure you this. Now, I have to make it clear, and I have to admit, you are going to be reading quite a bit. Um, Frankly, it's hard to get away from history without reading, without poring over text. That's how we transmit our stories throughout time. But that is what we are actually going to be focusing on this semester. Our stories, specifically because we are media, we are mass communication. And we're going to be focusing on essentially how the media has affected American Western culture from pre-colonialization all the way through today. Now, I love stories, and frankly, we are storytelling animals. Everything in our society comes or is transmitted through stories, from our achievements to our failures to our struggles. We tell stories constantly. Sometimes we embellish, sometimes we downplay, but everything throughout our society and in all human societies is transmitted through stories. And history is just that. It is our stories, and how we tell those stories affects how history is often interpreted. Now, the old adage is history is often written by the victors. Now, often that is very much the case, as we will see throughout this semester. In many cases, some of the things that you may know, and I'm putting that in parentheses, know about history, is often somewhat incorrect once we actually start going back and looking at objectively what's going on. The role of minorities, the role of women is often downplayed throughout history, because history is written by the most powerful in society, which was often white males. So we're going to be looking at the history of not only the dominant, but also the non-dominant entities within American society throughout the history of mass communication. But we're going to be doing it from a narrative perspective. It's one of the reasons I chose the book that I chose, because it isn't just about names and dates. Now, throughout the semester, I'm going to be adding content through to each of the weekly modules, to each of the weekly content that will hopefully kind of enrich the stories. I would ask you not only to just read the book, but also look at the content that I'm going to be adding. Some of it will be videos, some of it will be interviews, some of it will be additional reading content, but it's all there to help you cultivate a more rich understanding of the different concepts and the different stories that have made us who we are today. Another old adage is that if those who do not understand history are doomed to repeat it. And in many cases, that is very much the case. If you don't understand what has brought us to today, why we are the way we are, if you don't understand these things, you really are missing out on some of the perspective that will lead us on into what we will become. Now, I may be rambling, and that is entirely possible, so I'm going to cut this off and try and be brief. What I'm looking for this semester is for you guys to have an understanding of these concepts beyond names and dates. I want you to think about, in every topic that we cover this semester, not only what was going on at the time, but also how it affects what we are doing today, how it has had ripple effects all the way through history on into today. That is what we're going to be looking for. Now, let me give you a warning before we get started. When you approach history, there is one major sin that I want you to stay away from, and that's called presentism. Presentism. What this is applying present-day sensibilities and ideologies to historical events and occurrences. For example, if you were to go back to, say, the 1920s, even the most progressive-minded people would probably be considered pretty bigoted or pretty racist, or to use terms that would make people blush today with regard to women, with regard to minority groups, not because they were necessarily hateful toward those groups, but because it was just the way they were. That was the terminology of the day. That was the way that things were at the time. A perfect example of that would be some of the writings of Abraham Lincoln. If you go back and you actually read some of the writings of Abraham Lincoln, he wrote on more than one occasion that he did not believe, even though he believed in the ability of black folks and white folks to live peacefully, he did not necessarily believe that true equality would ever occur between black folks and white folks. He didn't believe that. He believed that self-determination should occur, but true equality would never occur between the two races. It wasn't necessarily because of, out and out racism that occurred, say, in the South, but it was just the ideology of the day. So, when we look back, we have to keep in mind that these were different times, different eras, and that even the most forward-thinking were still probably pretty backward compared to some of the ideologies of today. So, keep that in mind as I ask you guys to think about the ripple effects of historic events, as I ask you guys to think about how certain historical figures and events shaped current day thinking, shaped current day practices. Just keep it in mind that you can't apply current day sensibilities to historic events. All right, with that being said, if you have any questions or comments, if you have any concerns throughout the semester, I want you to understand my door is always open. Or in case of an online class, my email is always available. I am pretty reachable via phone, via email, via text message, via Skype, FaceTime. I love talking with my students, even if you guys are in different time zones. Just let me know if you'd like to talk, and I will do my best to make myself available to you. All right, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Again, Dr. Casey Hart. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.